Welcome to NPC Overrider, where we challenge mainstream source code to develop independent thought, one user story at a time.
Despite ever-increasing inflation, immigration, and crime rates, life has been relatively easy for Americans on average, compared to places like South and Central America, Africa, and India. Even for those living on the streets, there's public and private organizations that ensure the needy have basic necessities such as food, shelter, and controlled substances. But for all the world hunger, poverty, and corruption, whether at home or abroad, we don't often see much about North Korea. Why? In 1945, the US and Soviet Union split North and South Korea at the 38th parallel following the end of World War II, leaving the communists to run the North and the Republic of Korea to take the South. How's that been working out? Well, let's let this satellite image tell the story. While lacking the basic infrastructure to keep the lights on, this dark part of the globe consistently ranks extremely low on the human rights scales according to Freedom House, EIU a Democracy Index, and Reporters Without Borders. The problem with North Korea is that much of the data is unclear as the regime closely censors what information and people cross the border. What we do know about this mysterious land often comes from popular defectors such as Hyun-Sa Lee, Ji Sung-ho, and Tae Young-ho. Despite steep odds, they find asylum in places like Mongolia, Laos, and Vietnam, where they often eventually settle in places like South Korea or other Western nations. In 2009 alone, almost 3,000 people did just that. Unfortunately, the number of successful escapes has since dwindled following dictator Kim Jong-un's ever-tightening grip on the North Korean people. One of the more popular defectors, Yeonmi Park, escaped at age 13 and made it to the US in 2014, where she published her book In Order to Live, A North Korean Girl's Journey to Freedom. In 2019, she gave a TED Talk, created a YouTube channel, appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience, then released her second book, While Time Remains. Regardless of where you hear or read about Park's experiences of those of her counterparts, you might find yourself kissing the ground and thanking God you live in the USA. As an American kid, it really sucks getting out of your warm bed in the dead of winter to rush through a toaster strudel and then schlep it to the bus stop. But it would have sucked way worse to get up in the dead of winter, then go do unpaid manual labor for a few hours before coming home to, quote, breakfast, which consisted of little more of rice and maybe soup made of wild plants and roots, which is probably healthier than a toaster strudel, then walking not to the bus stop, but all the way to school. That's because in North Korea, only the elites have cars, and there is no bus system. Once arriving at class, the teacher will spend all day cramming propaganda down your throat by telling you the obese guy in charge of a starving nation is a god. Maybe they'll teach you some basic math, but it's not of much use since most people don't have anything to add up anyway, except maybe the bodies floating down the river. If you're an adult, you'll spend the day at your state-selected job dictated by government needs and your family's sungbun or social credit score. A higher sungbun will get you a more desirable spot in government or business, while a lower ranking will likely put you in a factory, field, or on poop duty. More on that later. Unless you're among the select elites, your family will likely turn to the black market or jangmadang to supplement income by trading or selling common goods such as leather, scrap metal, or alcohol. In the evening, you'll come home to prepare yet another, quote, meal consisting of rice and whatever you can find in the wild or on the beach that's edible because gardens are illegal. In the most desperate cases, many have turned to eating dead animals or neighbors to survive. We Westerners like to say no matter how bad things get, at least we have each other. But in North Korea, there's a fair chance at least one family member or friend is among one of the 200 to 300,000 estimated detainees in North Korean labor camps. These people are not locked up for assault or murder, but for much more heinous crimes, such as trading scrap metal for goods or getting caught with contraband, such as South Korean music or film. If you wondered what the opposite of freedom is, it's North Korea. For example, in North Korea, it's said to be illegal to fold a newspaper depicting Kim Jong-un's face. Once you've read the paper, you can't just throw it away. You have to leave it lying around so somebody qualified to dispose of the newspaper can do so. Need to get your hair did? Maybe a medium fade? Sorry, state-approved hairstyles only. It's even illegal to smile on the anniversary of North Korea's initial leader, Kim Il-sung's death. The state manages all forms of media. You may not make international phone calls, and Bibles are illegal. Due to malnutrition, most people only go number 2 a few times a month, but of the little excrement one produces, you're required to give it to the government for fertilizer annually. That's right, if you're in North Korea, you have a poop quota, and if you're not careful, somebody might steal yours. If your house catches fire and the first thing you save is anything but your state-mandated portrait of Kim Jong-un, you stand a good chance of ending up in a camp or facing execution. This portrait is subject to random government inspections, and some people have been, you guessed it, put in front of a firing squad for having dust on the frame. How do they handle all these executions anyway? Defectors, satellite imagery, and the South Korean government suggest dissenters were commonly executed with anti-aircraft guns, typically in a soccer field where the public, including children, were forced to watch. Earlier this year, Kim Jong-un reportedly executed 30 government officials for failure to prevent massive flooding and landslides that killed thousands over the summer. In 2023, a toddler and his parents were sentenced to life in prison after they were caught with a Bible. But it's not just North Koreans at risk. In 2016, Otto Warmbier, an American tourist, was arrested at Pyongyang airport after trying to steal a propaganda poster on his way out. He was detained for 6 months before they finally released him. But Warmbier arrived home with an unconscious state, and he died shortly after. The coroner cited a severe neurological injury, but the details remain a mystery. You can't tweet or talk about any of this stuff as the internet is severely censored, and of the few people allowed to have cell phones are subject to random inspections by government officials. Despite all these reports, the North Korean government insists defectors like Yeonmi Park are only out for money and recognition, and all these are ridiculous accusations or false. Unfortunately for Kim Jong-un, it's kind of hard to explain the anti-aircraft guns lined up on a soccer field. Still, the dictator will go to great lengths to maintain appearances, even building a fake city, Kijongdong, more commonly known as the Peace Village or Propaganda Village. The city is populated by nothing more than timed lights and maintenance workers performatively sweeping the streets. Similarly, while Christian churches are found in the capital city of Pyongyang, there is much speculation about their legitimacy since the state manages all churches and religions. The U.S. State Department has a level 4 do not travel advisory to North Korea, and the regime has a strict set of requirements for the select few Westerners permitted to visit the communist state, including not being allowed to go anywhere without your official government tour guide. If you want to see more details about this stuff, check out YouTube vlogs like Indigo Traveller, Drew Binsky, and Life of Jord. But even if 10% of this stuff is true, why the secrecy among those who claim to stand for equality? Given the global concern for slavery and oppression among Westerners over the past decade or so, you would think North Korea would be a hot topic during drunken holiday feasts. If you want to talk about the patriarchy, content creators could write a ton of articles about the North Korean regime's Kipimjo, or pleasure squads, which are sex slaves for Kim Jong-un and his inner circle. This wasn't 200 years ago, but right now. Some people compare Trump's agenda and conservatism as a whole to Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale, a fictional story about strict religious-based government enforcement. Yet, Kim Jong-un basically rewrote the Bible with him as the supreme being. Due to strict censorship, most North Koreans don't know the difference.
North Korea the regime is a religion, right? They copy the religion. So what's interesting about why they fear Christianity so much is that Kim Il-sung was raised in a Christian family. And Pyongyang used to be a very thriving Christian time where there were a lot of missionaries came from the West. And then Kim Il-sung, when he became a dictator, he copied the Bible. He copied the 10 Commandments. And he said, I loved you so much, I'm giving you my son, Kim Jong-il. His body dies, but his spirit is with us all the time. That's how he knows our thoughts, what we think, and that's how people are even afraid to think.
Wow.
And because he copied the Bible, if people read the actual Bible that was written many thousands of years before him, we're gonna know that he's the fake. That's why he fears the Christianity so much more. But there are no existence of any religion. Officially say they allow freedom of religion, but in reality, nobody can.
However, there is reason for these atrocities flying under the radar, which is that China and North Korea need each other. North Korea relies on China for support, and China needs North Korea as a puppet state to keep a cultural and physical barrier from the West. Since many corporations in the Western world, politicians, and celebrities are in bed with China, some literally, modern-day slavery is an inconvenient truth and therefore mostly absent from corporate media. So this holiday season, when your blue-haired cousin calls you a colonizer, a North Korean child starves. When an NBA or NFL player kneels for the national anthem, a girl performs sex acts on a North Korean government official against her will. And when another celebrity leaves the US for fear of America falling to a, quote, right-wing fascist state, an infant sits in lifetime imprisonment because his parents were caught with a Bible. But do tell us more about Native American oppression. So what can one do? According to people like Yeonmi Park and her fellow defectors, breaking the silence is number one. So sharing or liking this video and any of their many videos you can find online is a big help. But if you want to get involved more directly and support some of these refugee organizations, you can check out a few of the big ones such as Liberty in North Korea, Citizens Alliance for North Korean Human Rights, Crossing Borders, or People for Successful Korean Reunification. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's version of NPC Overrider. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this week's user story, please set the like button to true so we can help spread the word of this modern-day slavery and maybe share with a friend or your blue-haired cousin. Also, if you're considering subscribing, please do. We'd love to have you on our development team. And if you have an idea for a future video, please open a ticket in the comments section. We'll get back with you ASAP. But we're going to go ahead and shut her down. It's about beer 30 here at the office. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next release.